IB Juniors, last unit of the year we're transitioning to, so let's talk about what we're up to here for the next few days. Say hello to Audrey as well. Okay, so first, complete the due now assignment. That's due before 2. Nothing's changed. And then we're gonna be watching this documentary that's based upon one of the foremost books written on the Versailles Peace Conference called Paris 1919, a book written by Margaret Macmillan. We'll be watching the documentary to save us some time. That you can start as soon as you want. You should have the first 4 parts due by Friday and have it finished by Tuesday. It's excellent. It's worth watching. And it really does help us understand what took place in Paris at the Peace Conference. But this last unit's significant because it is the link to next year. So there are a number of things that we're going to be doing related to the IB curriculum and related to linking it up with next year. So let's just take a look at some of the things in our resources folder first. All right, the resources folder has our learning targets. And let's take a quick look at those. This is how it reads. Versailles to Berlin, Diplomacy in Europe, 1919 to 1945. Half of that, particularly as it relates to World War II and the rise of Hitler, that come next year. But this is what it is. This section addresses international relations in Europe from 1919 to 1945 with initial emphasis on the Paris Peace Settlement, its goals, impact, and the problems relating to its enforcement. The section covers attempts to promote collective security and international cooperation through the League of Nations and multilateral agreements. We'll try to study as many of those as we can. Also included within the League were arms reduction and the pursuit of foreign policy goals without resort to violence. Section also addresses the individual foreign policies of Italy, Germany, France, Britain, Russia, or the Soviet Union, looking at the aims, issues, and successes of each one. It concludes with the study of the Second World War, but again, that comes next year. So we won't only be studying the Treaty of Versailles, but the other treaties that were signed with combatant nations. Those are listed here. We'll be doing a separate assignment about that. And we'll also be studying the League of Nations, some successes that it had, mostly failures, major failures. Obviously, World War II happens within 20 years. But it does lay the groundwork for what is the United Nations today. And we'll have some time to discuss and cover that. Other things in the resources folder here, there are a number of separate notes. First here are notes specifically on the Treaty of Versailles and also on Wilson's 14-point plan. It's worth noting here that the Germans the Germans agreed to the armistice based upon Wilson's 14-point plan. What the Germans received in June of 1919 was completely different. So these notes that are first in the resources folder cover just that. It goes through some statistics, covers who made the major decisions, what their objectives were, what their goals were for each country, and also gives some specifics on Wilson's 14-point plan, and then specifics on the actual Treaty of Versailles. So you'll see specifics on that. Previous years have done this by working on a simulation that we would do in class. Unfortunately, that is not an option. Strange world we live in. The next set of notes here include notes on the other treaties and effects of the mandate system. The answer that the Allied leaders had to how to handle territory, particularly particularly colonial territory in places like Africa and the Middle East, the answer that they had was something called the mandate system. And we will have some time to look at the mandate system. But these notes cover the political effects of World War I, some things that we just learned about in Russia, and then it gets into how the Germans reacted to the treaty and the other treaties. Treaty of Saint Germain signed with Austria-Hungary, some specifics about that. Neuilly with Bulgaria. Treaty of Trianon signed separately with Hungary. Austria and Hungary were split up. And then the Treaty of Sèvres, which later had to be remade in 1923. You'll see that maybe the most influential or consequential decisions had to do with what was formerly the Ottoman Empire and what would replace it, as many in that region served with the Allies, fought alongside the British, and were promised some things that also were promised to the rising Jewish nationalists, also known as Zionists. We'll see that this creates some significant conflict. There are some extra credit opportunities related to that topic of the mandate system and what was created in that region around in and around Jerusalem. There was a partition plan in place that has simply been very difficult to implement. And we see what that looks like today and some of the extra credit opportunities that you could certainly pursue. But that is what this set of notes is all about. The other treaties and the political effects of the war. The other set of notes in here deals specifically with the League of Nations and other diplomatic efforts that took place in the early 1920s. The United States never joined the League of Nations, even though it was our idea, or Woodrow Wilson's idea. And that was probably the major reason why it failed. The fact that the United States and Germany initially and the Soviet Union weren't in the League of Nations. Germany did join in 1926, but the absence of major powers is a major reason why it failed. These notes take us through the structures of the League and other things that took place afterwards. Let me just show you, give you a little preview of it. So here's what the I'm hitting the wrong button, quite honestly, kids. Yeah, there we go. Let's shrink that up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Now we're on track. Okay, so here's what the league looked like. The foundations and the structures of it. What the purpose of it was. You'll notice some of the words still exist, like the World Health Organization. That still exists today. A bit controversial, even though there were hundreds of Americans employed by the World Health Organization. It's been criticized by our own government. It's a bizarre world we live in. And then it goes through the aims of the League. 1, stop war. 2, improve people's lives. 3, disarm. And 4, uphold and enforce the treaty. We can clearly say that most of the aims of the League were not met, although there were some successes. And we'll have perhaps a chance to look at some of those. There were other diplomatic efforts made in this period of time that we'll have some time to talk about. This would include the Washington Naval Treaties of 1921 and 1922, perhaps the most significant disarmament efforts or successes took place in the Washington Naval Treaties. The Rapallo Treaty, that was signed between Germany and the Soviet Union, which scared the daylights out of the Allied countries. The Locarno Pacts, which were a major step towards peace and reconciliation, and then also the Kellogg-Briand Pacts, which are about as close as we've ever gotten to establishing a lasting peace. Unfortunately, a year after the Kellogg-Briand Pacts were signed, the U.S. stock market crashed, and most of what was accomplished in the latter part of the 1920s completely fell apart. All right. With that, I am going to leave you today. And as always, if you have any questions, please contact me. I would love to hear from you more. Have a great day.